Hello and welcome back to Love People Use Things Book Club. We are at chapter 4, Values, and this is the root of the minimalists. They're the only people I know who talk about their values. Seriously, no one I knew as a kid talked about their values. And so when I first started reading about the minimalists, I was like, okay, yeah, values. Yeah, I know what those are. And then it became such a meaty part of their literature that I found myself questioning, do I know what values are? Really? Do I know what mine are? The answer was no. So I've done their values worksheet a couple of times and it changes every time I do it, which is probably not right. But this chapter was very enlightening on how they are fluid and how they change and what examples of some values are. Because I was at a bit of a loss, to be completely honest. Let's get to the questions. Question 1, what is your object A and why? I think this is a really interesting philosophy. The idea that there is something that you want that you shouldn't. Now, their examples in the book were mostly like a phone or a specific type of house or a very specific type of car. There are all sorts of things that I want. But when I sat down and started working on this question, I was like, think of a bigger thing. And so I wrote down that my object A was to be a celebrated actor and photographer. Now, nothing is wrong with wanting to be an actor and a photographer. Those are two things that I currently am. However, the celebrated part is the part that I feel like is in the way of me getting to my actual happiness. You don't have to just be famous or celebrated in order to be successful. So the root of the problem is my definition of success has been wrong. I think a lot of people think of success as plenty of money, fancy houses and cars, fame on a certain level, especially in the age of digital media when literally anyone can be famous. So I think of fame as some form of stability. Because if you're famous, the likelihood is you have a steady income because you have steady support or steady following, meaning steady influx of opportunity and therefore income. I don't think that's a wrong ladder of assumption, but I don't think it is the only ladder that I can use in order to be happy and find the stability that I'm searching for in my life. So that's my object A. I think I can get rid of the celebrated part, the fame part, and really if I'm just happy with the work that I'm creating and I am making enough money to supply my needs and a couple of my wants even, I am living my dream. I have been a photographer and an actor my entire life. That is something that so many people dream of that they don't get the opportunity to fulfill and live. And I'm getting to do that. I appreciate that. I understand that that is an incredibly wonderful and special thing. So I don't know why I'm searching for that next level of fame when I should just be wanting to continue to do what I'm doing. But then to continue to do what I'm doing, I need people to be fans. I need people to be interested in my work. I need people to hire me to take their photos. I need people to hire me to be in their whatevers. See the catch-22 there? But based on this chapter, I think that is the right object A for me. The getting rid of the expectation that I need to be famous in order to be happy, because that's bogus. Question 2. How are you currently compromising your values and holding yourself back? So yet again, this question was like, oop, let me skip ahead to the values worksheet and figure out what those values are. But what I think would surprise most people is I am extraordinarily lazy. I let the fear of failure stop me from doing things. And then that perpetuates itself and it just becomes a malaise of me just laying around and not really doing the things that I need to be doing in order to reach the goals that I have for myself. Continuing to be a photographer and an actor and be a useful member of society. So if there's like a big task that's intimidating to me or I've never done it before or I feel like it's gonna take a lot of time, I will perpetually put it off by doing the silly mundane things that I need to do every day, like the dishes, making the bed, taking out the recycling. My whole day could be filled with little chores like that and I'd be like, oops, I guess there was no time for me to do the things in my life that I really wanted to do. No. I've been guilty of that for 10 years and I am tired of it. I would just be mortified at all of the little things that I'm doing instead of the things that I could be doing to further my wants and desires. I'm not saying I need to be productive all the time. I'm saying I need to use the time that I have more wisely, which I learned and which I've outlined in, I think it was like video 1. I think it was chapter 1 that we kind of were like, yeah, in order to be a minimalist, for my definition, I need to use the resources I have been given wisely, one of those being time. So I'm compromising on my values of being useful by getting in my own way. And that's just so sad. I should be the one person that's my biggest cheerleader, but I tend to be the one person that's convincing myself to sit on the couch and watch TV or read, or I'd rather do dishes sometimes than some of the things that I know will make me happier in the long run if I just put forward the immediate work and get it done. Question 3. When it comes to changing your life to align with your values, what frightens you and why? What happens if it doesn't work? What happens if I put forth the extra work? What if I give up the Diet Coke? What if I work super hard and break my back to make videos and make content, and I do everything that is recommended that I do in order to find this joy, and it still doesn't work? That's what scares me about this. But I think that's a philosophical fear. I think that is something that all of us deep down are afraid of. What if we put in all of the effort and it doesn't make a difference? That's a terrifying thought. That is an existential crisis. But I'm feeling optimistic today, and I feel that trying is better than doing nothing. And at least you'll have an interesting story at the end of it. And you could think that all the philosophers in the world, you've had enough time as a human species capable of language and communication to realize that it does work. If you put in the effort, it does make you joyful. It does give your life meaning. But I'm also a millennial. I don't have any firsthand experience of that working out. So it's not that I'm afraid of trying. It's not that I'm afraid of the growing pains. It's not that I'm afraid of this discomfort of change. It's that I'm afraid that it'll be for nothing, because that doesn't feel like a good use of my resources. It feels wasteful. Is it just spinning your wheels if it doesn't work out? It's a terrifying thought. And I don't think it's an unreasonable fear. I think that's a real fear. Question 4. What do you understand to be the differences between pleasure, happiness, contentment, and joy? I really loved Joshua's explanation of this. I think the image of there being different levels and that each action we do throughout our entire lives falls into one of those categories and how they build on each other is really brilliant. I had never thought about happiness that way. And I really loved his example of the food, right? The idea that eating a piece of cake gives you pleasure in the moment, but it's gonna make you feel like trash tomorrow because you didn't eat your veggies. That really rings true in my head. I use Diet Coke as an example. So like Diet Coke brings me pleasure in the moment, but it doesn't necessarily bring me happiness later because I feel guilty about drinking it. So if I deprive myself of drinking it, I don't have the immediate pleasure, but I have happiness for making a positive choice. Contentment would be realizing that I don't need it, learning that I don't have to drink it, learning I can find caffeine in other ways, or yet again, cut out caffeine. And then joy would be me learning to live life without it. I know this is like a weird, minuscule, tiny little thing, but after a bunch of chapters about self-care, that was what came to mind. I was like, oh my gosh, that's an example of how, yes, I get immediate pleasure, but it's not necessarily for the benefit of my overall joy and the overall benefit of my life. So I really liked his illustration there. I thought that was really handy, and I have been thinking about my day-to-day decisions differently since getting this illustration. The idea that, yes, like I may not want to get up and get dressed to do yoga every morning, but it makes me more productive and makes me happier throughout the day, because when I am productive, I feel useful, and so therefore I am reaching the next rung on this joy ladder, essentially. If he came up with that himself, well done. If he didn't, I would like to know where he got it. Question 5. How will your future self express gratitude for the way you are living your life today? Using this time when I had time to myself, and a lot of it, to teach me, a very slow learner, how to set myself up for success, and not the definition of success that everyone has, but the definition of success that the minimalists provide us. I can only imagine what I'll be able to accomplish and how much better I will feel about what I've accomplished because I have a better frame of mind about the world around me and about myself and about my interaction with it, most importantly. I will hopefully be very thankful that I took this time to learn, and that I took the time to realize that I don't know everything about everything, and that everything can change. And learning how you handle the change, what you do with it, that's key. So those were questions 1 through 5 of chapter 4 of Love People Use Things. What a chapter. They just keep getting better and better. So the do's of values. Obviously, do the value worksheet. The first couple times I did it, I did not know what I was doing. I was just making stuff up as I went along. I didn't really know what was going on. I was just trying to get as much of their stuff into my system as possible. This time, I really sat down and was working on them. So I had to go back and continue to reference Joshua's definitions of what each of the different types of values were, like what a foundational value is as opposed to a structural or a surface value. The fact that they can change, I think, is really helpful. Mine have been changing constantly. And the idea of imaginary values was really helpful as well. Like the idea of like, it's kind of like object A, right? Where it's something that you value a lot of, but really you don't. Some of my imaginary values were like likes on social, because we all constantly check those. Accolades and publications, things that other people add value to. One of the weird things on mine was like tech acumen, like the fact that I don't understand everything about everything with photography and video is okay, and I need to stop putting so much value on people who do, because sometimes my photos and videos look better than theirs. Anyway, but this chapter was, I think, the most helpful in helping me figure out how to figure out what my values were. Now, the don'ts of the values chapter, very interesting. Don't chase perfectionism. Absolutely. I've been doing that my entire life. It stopped me from trying a lot of things that I've wanted to try, but I'm not letting that happen anymore. I am not going to let the lack of perfectionism the first time I try something stop me from ever doing it again. Of course not. It makes no sense if I were giving that advice to somebody else, but why is it so hard for me to take that advice for myself? That's so silly. And I think the idea of not chasing pleasure and happiness and trying to build daily things towards contentment and joy is a really incredible idea, and I absolutely approve of it. It's harder to do in practice than not. I'm comparing this a lot to like my shopping habits. I used to shop a lot for like house things, especially when I was building up our home, because it brought me pleasure. It made me feel like I was doing something. It made me feel like I was useful, and it made me happy for a time, certainly. But the contentment and joy that I'm starting to feel now is with losing the things. It's incredible what refraining from that feeds pleasure and happiness can bring to contentment and joy. It's hard, but it's so worth it. And I'd like to do it in every area of my life. I've definitely done it with the shopping in terms of like literal minimalism, trying to get that all squared away. It's a lot harder when it comes to my actions for my jobs. So I'm interested to try to make that happen. This chapter has a lot to offer in terms of that, figuring out what you as a person want instead just of picking the best options of what people have offered. This is a hard chapter, but totally worth it. I've loved every second of it. And I am so frustrated that this was never something we were taught in school. Y'all, why was I taught and told to memorize multiplication tables, but I wasn't taught about how to figure out what my values were? I'm learning it now. Better late than never. Hopefully you are also learning this now. Better late than never. And I hope you enjoyed it. I'm really excited for the next chapter. Chapter 5, relationship with money. Oh my gosh. My relationship with money has been terrible. It's been great. It's been all over the place. I'm really looking forward to it. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you at the next chapter. Until then, have a great day. I don't know, like go about your life. Go live in accordance with your values. I don't know, just go. Get out of here. Get